Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Ruth here from Mediocre Mama. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my 3 top reasons as to why you should consider hypnobirthing. Now, I'm about 7 or 8 weeks away from giving birth to my 3rd baby, so I'm starting to practice hypnobirthing, starting to refresh my mind and read books and start practicing the techniques. And I thought it'd be a really good time to put a video together to share why I choose to do hypnobirthing and how it might help you to feel a bit more confident about birth. Now, before I share my 3 reasons, I do want to say that I think hypnobirthing requires a really open mind. You really need to approach this with an open mind, because I read a lot when women have said, oh, I tried hypnobirthing, it's a bit too weird for me, oh, it's really hippie, I can't get on board with it. And the thing with hypnobirthing, like most thing, like sports or learning an instrument, you can't just read a book and put it down and be an expert. It's not something that you can just learn overnight. It requires, like sport or music, a lot of practice. It is something that at first seems a bit bizarre, especially when you're kind of listening to any kind of hypnobirthing meditation, for example, or trying to do positive affirmations. You just kind of think, this is a bit ridiculous. Or the woman in my ears, you know, kind of talking to me saying, relax, breathe. And it kind of makes you maybe laugh at first or just think, oh, I can't get on board with this. But really, you just need to go with an open mind, practice it, start from about 30 weeks, and gradually over time, and each night that you do it, it just becomes the norm. You just get used to it, and it's benefiting you in such a massive way that you just won't regret sticking with it, I promise. So here are my 3 reasons for why you should consider hypnobirthing. Number 1 is to get rid of the fear of birth. Get rid of the fear of birth. Why do we have a fear of birth? Well, I'll tell you why we have a fear of birth. It's because we are conditioned from a very young age, from when we're little girls and we're growing up, and we're told all these horror stories about birth, whether it's from our own parents, relatives, friends. You know, birth is horrific, it's painful, oh my god, it's like you are dying, it's the worst thing in the world. And all these kind of comments and opinions get programmed into our mind, and they kind of stick to the subconscious mind, and they stay there until we become women. We watch things, we listen to things, we read things that are all about how horrific birth is. So it is no wonder that when we get to the stage where we want to have babies, what do we associate with birth? We just think of the worst possible things that have been programmed into our mind over time. It's horrific, it's scary, it's painful, it's awful. And all of these things that we're feeling or thinking about birth are not going to help us in any way, is not going to help you get through birth. Yes, you are going to fear it, you're going to be terrified. And the kind of feelings of fear and being terrified is just not going to help you at all. So what we want to do with some of the techniques that we learn through hypnobirthing is to reprogram our mind. And you might be thinking, this is really bizarre. There's no way you can reprogram a mind. What are you talking about? If you think about it, your mind's already been programmed with negative, 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 negative over the years into that subconscious mind. So why can we not change that and start programming positive, 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 positive into our head? And it's not something that's going to work overnight, not at all. You know, you want to be listening to positive affirmations, reading positive affirmations, doing a lot of positive reinforcement, reading positive birth stories, watching positive birth videos. All these kinds of things that are going to help us to relearn and understand that birth is not horrific. Okay, it has been for some women, but there's a reason why it was horrific. We can change that, and that all starts with our brain and how we think about it and what we associate with birth. So one of the key things here for you to do is to avoid horror stories, avoid awful birth stories, start reading more positive birth stories, actively search for positive birth videos. Avoid things like One Born Every Minute, where you just see women coming into hospital screaming, laying on their backs, having the worst time. We need to be actively searching for positive birth stories, reading and watching and listening to meditations and affirmations. Again, meditation is something that I feel like a lot of people can't get on board with. I guess if you're not used to meditation, it is a really bizarre thing. But we have the wrong impression of meditation sometimes. We imagine people with their legs crossed, with their fingers like this, going om. And it's really not like that at all. Now, if you've never done meditation before, it is going to feel strange. But if you do it for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, and just keep doing it, it becomes really normal and really natural. So if the first time you do it, you think, no, I can't, this is just ridiculous, just try and stick with it. You don't have to do anything. There are so many guided meditations on YouTube. So all you do is you find a hypnobirthing guided meditation, you put your headphones in, or you have your phone on loud, you lay in bed to go to sleep, and you just listen. And that is all you need to do. Let the guided meditation guide you. It might get you to visualize things, or it might just be kind of reading positive affirmations to you. All you need to do is lay there and just take it all in. And if you fall asleep, that's fine. Let it continue to play, and all those kind of positive visualizations will keep going into the subconscious mind. But you just need to lay there and listen, and you won't realize the effect at first, but over time you'll start to get really used to just switching off, listening to it and relaxing, so that when you do come to labor and birth, you can go to your hypnobirthing meditations, put them on, and relax your body and take your mind somewhere else. I also understand that things can happen in birth and it's not all plain sailing. But again, if we eradicate the fear, then we can approach any kind of situation. If we need an assisted delivery, we're not going to suddenly start panicking and freaking out. If we need to go for a C-section, again, we can approach that with a calm and relaxed mind. We don't need to be panicking or being scared. Birth is a very natural thing, whether it's all straightforward or whether we do have to go for a C-section. Every possibility can happen in birth, but we just need to make sure that our minds are focused and positive and not freaking out. Okay, so my second reason for you to consider hypnobirthing is learning how to work with the uterus. Now, in my first labour, I did not realise the uterus is a big, massive, giant muscle. I just didn't know this. And looking back now, I can see how I totally worked against this muscle, and I made my birth longer and more painful. I didn't know anything about the uterus muscle. Having now learnt hypnobirthing for my second birth, and in particular now more this one because I've read a little bit more into it again to understand how I can work with my uterus muscle to make it less painful, to speed up the process of labour, and to just let your body get on with what it's trying to do. What we don't realise is we work against our uterus a lot in labour, which is why women have a really horrific experience. So for example, one of the hormones that we need for labour is oxytocin. But what a lot of us tend to end up using is adrenaline, which is the enemy for the uterus. The uterus muscle in the first part of labour is trying to work up so that the cervix can open. And then when we're ready to push our baby down, the muscle pushes down. It contracts down to push baby out. So the first part of labour, which is really long, the muscle is working up to try and open the cervix. And if we are tense and scared and freaking out and not working with that muscle, we're depriving it of blood and oxygen. And that is when it starts to get really painful and it starts to struggle and it starts to work really slowly. I saw a really good way to understand this on the Positive Birth Company on their YouTube channel, where she said to hold your arm in the air and to do this with your hand. And if you're holding it in the air and squeezing your hand, after a while it really starts to hurt. And it starts to send messages to the brain that this is really painful. The blood is draining down your arm. It's starting to get deprived of oxygen. It will start to really hurt. And your body and your brain, it will start communicating that this needs to stop. Make this stop. Make this pain stop. So that's effectively what's happening with the uterus. If we start to deprive it of blood and oxygen, it starts to struggle. It sends a message to the brain, and the brain is saying, stop this, stop, stop, stop. This is far too painful. And if we're telling the muscle to stop, then we're slowing everything down and we're trying to prevent labor from happening. So adrenaline is one of those things that does that when you're really scared and panicking. And we also have fight or flight mode where we're really freaking out. If someone came to attack us, we'd go into fight or flight mode where we'd either try and fight and defend ourselves or we would run. And that is really not something that you want in birth, because all the blood and oxygen will go to your arms and legs, which we don't need. We need all the blood and oxygen to go to our uterus. So how can we do this? So again, referring back to things like the meditation, for example, if we've practiced that from 30 weeks every single night, then we will learn how to get into a calm state, a calm, relaxed state where we can just lay and listen to our headphones in labor, try and take our mind somewhere else, try and get the whole body to relax so that uterus muscle can do the job that it's intended to do and we're not fighting against it. We also learn 2 breathing techniques to help with this. The really important one is the up breath. Now, breathing is something that a lot of women again will go, oh, yeah, you don't need to tell me to breathe in labor, but it's a very particular technique, and it's not only used in hypnobirthing, it's used for many, many things. And, you know, even if you have anxiety or everyday life stress, then this particular breathing technique is amazing. But I didn't know this breathing technique with my first labor, and having learned it for my second, it made a massive difference. So they say that you breathe in for 4 and you breathe out your mouth for 8, and you do this 4 times. So if you go in for 4, out for 8, and you repeat that 4 times, that is the length of one contraction. If your contraction is about 48 seconds, then knowing that you have to do that breathing technique 4 times, not only will keep your body calm and relaxed because you're focused on the breathing and not the pain, but it will also mean that you've gotten through a contraction and it's done. And then you can wait for the next one. And that is one step closer to baby being born. If we don't do these kind of breathing techniques and we're breathing really fast or panicking and we can't get through and we're not breathing, we're just tensing up again. And again, we are working against the uterus, and it's going to slow down contractions, and it's going to make the uterus's job really, really difficult. So I think in hypnobirthing, it's really, really interesting to really learn about that uterus muscle and how we can work with it and not against it. And with all of that in mind, my number 3 reason for considering hypnobirthing is to speed up labor, birth, and recovery. Let's speed it all up. Let's not make it really drawn out, long, and painful. Why would we want to do that? We don't want to do that. We don't want to make it more painful for ourselves by depriving our uterus of oxygen and getting tense and rapidly breathing and just making everything really difficult and telling our brain, I don't want this to happen. If you're telling your brain you don't want this to happen, it's not going to happen. Baby's going to be held in for longer. You're going to panic more, and the pain in that muscle is just going to increase, and it's just going to be horrific for you. Whereas if you can apply all the techniques of hypnobirthing, focusing on your breath, your mind, trying to reprogram your mind to relax, be calm, birth is natural and normal, and you can get through it, and you are strong. If you can do all these things and learn to work in harmony with your uterus, learn to work with it, which I had no idea in my first labour that I needed to do, it will make all the difference. And I know this from experience because my first labour was very long, very painful. I just cried all the way through it. I didn't know how to breathe. I didn't know how to relax. So it was long and painful and horrific. And I can say that. And now I can understand why women over the years have said, my birth was horrific and painful. That's why. Whereas now I've experienced a second birth using hypnobirthing, I can look back and see how it really, really helped. It really did speed labour along. It really did help my uterus to get on with the job it's intended to do. However, there was still space for improvement, which I'm trying to work on now. The place where I needed improvement was the birthing of the baby. That's when I started to panic and tense up. that transition stage where you're ready to push, I did freak out. I started to work against my body. I was tense, I was panicking. I was at home, so I was crying that I wanted to go to hospital. But once I brought my breath back down, and once I worked again, work with my body, remain calm, I used some gas and air and just brought that calm back down to my body, relax, focus my mind somewhere else, focus on my breathing, and then 15 minutes later, baby was born. Hypnobirthing is fascinating. You really want to learn and understand the science behind the brain, the reprogramming of the mind, the breath, the uterus, how the body all works together to make birth so much better. And as I said before, hypnobirthing requires a lot of practice. It's not something that you'll just do once and go, I get it. It's not something that you'll just know overnight. It requires practice, practice, practice. And when the big day comes for labour and birth, you're going to be ready and prepared, and you're going to feel so much more calm and confident and empowered. And all those stories you've been told over the years will hopefully just phase away from your mind. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video useful and that it will give you the confidence to go and research into hypnobirthing a bit more, and perhaps you might consider using it for your birth. I really recommend the Hypnobirthing book by Catherine Graves. This is a really great tool to get started and to kind of understand your body and your uterus, and it's written quite in a really kind of easy way to understand. It also comes with MP3 tracks, so you can start listening to hypnobirthing scripts and meditation, which you'll need to practice every night. But please do give it a try. Please do stick with it. It is a bit weird at first. It is a bit bizarre. It can feel uncomfortable or out of place listening to these kind of things, but over time you will get used to it, you will accept it, and it will really benefit you. I hope to see you on my next video. Please do give this a thumbs up if you found it useful and enjoyed it. And I would love for you to consider subscribing, and I will see you on my next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.